In this video, we're going to talk about scatter plots and starting to get an idea of what a correlation is. So let's get started. So in this picture, in this diagram, we are first going to plot or create a scatter plot. These stand for the X values, these stand for the Y values, and notice it's labeled over here, amount of rainfall and temperature. So if in order to plot this piece of information, which is saying for 4 millimeters of rainfall, we see a temperature of 8 degrees Celsius, I would go over to 4 and up to 8 and plot my point. Then I would go to plot, just continue to plot the rest of them. So 5, 12, plot a point, 6, 11, it's down a little bit, 7, oops, right there. 7, 7 is right here. 9, 6. 10, 5. 12, 4. And 13, 1. Okay, so here's my scatter plot. Now, what I want you to notice and what I really want you to kind of get the idea of is if I had only plotted, and I'm going to do something on that. Okay, if I didn't have any of those values and I just had those 2 points, I might think that that the pattern or the trend is going up. But if I consider all of the values together, I can see that my general trend is actually that my graph is going down. So we would say that this graph has a negative correlation, because as I go further to the right, my values are decreasing. Or in other words, hey, as the amount of rainfall goes up, okay, as the numbers are getting bigger, the temperature is decreasing. So more rain, lower temperatures is the general trend that I'm seeing. Okay, and that's what correlations are. Okay, or what is the trend or the pattern that I'm seeing. If I look at this data, so for 2 years, I have a tree, a height of 4. For 5 years, I have a height of 2. Now, right now, with just 2 pieces of information, it looks like it's going down. But if I add more, so 7, 7, 8, 6, 11, 9, 12, 11, and 13, 14, I can see that my pattern isn't going down. The general trend is that it's going up, which, does that make sense? Okay, if I increase the age of a tree, does that increase the height of a tree? Well, just yes, most oftentimes, the older a tree is, the taller it is, because it just continues to grow. Now the next questions are going to ask me to kind of also show that trend. So for the 21 students, so that's all my dots, okay? And you notice we drew in a kind of a trend line. We call this our line of best fit because our line is as most central to that data as we can in the center. So it's about the same number of dots above and below. So for these students, as the number of hours increases, so as I go from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 hours going this way, the amount of money tends to, hey, well, how much money am I spending on entertainment at 8 years versus 16 years? It's going up. So I would say increases. So for these 21 students, because that pattern is increasing, we would say that there is a positive correlation. If it was decreasing, we'd say that there is a negative correlation. And then it says, using the line of fit, we would predict that a student working 10 hours would spend approximately how much? So now here's the thing. Notice that it says using the line of best fit, which means I am not going to use this dot right here. Sometimes people think, oh, you just use the dot. Nope. Use the best fit line. So at 10 hours, I would predict that I would spend $25 on entertainment. So let's look at a couple more. So I see my dots and I see my trend line. Now you might notice that it's kind of weird. This trend line doesn't go through center of most of my data, but notice right over here I have what are called outliers, or data that's far away from the rest. It throws off when we make a best fit line. We have to take into account that these dots are part of my data, and so it kind of throws off that trend. If these dots were gone, I'd probably say that my trend line's going this way. But notice that my outliers don't affect the direction of my trend. It's still going down. So for these 24 students, as time is spent increasing watching television, the time spent doing homework is decreases. For the 24 students, there is a negative correlation. So when something is decreasing, as the other increases, there is a negative correlation. And using my best fit line, what will we predict for 18 hours? So here's 18, go up to the dot. Okay, we would predict, now it's not exact, but it is slightly under 14. So I would predict probably 13 or maybe 13 and a half, depending on what options I have. The next couple of questions are going to ask me to just kind of get an idea of what type of things have correlations, which things don't, and also what things are not even linear. So notice that in these two graphs, I think they are obviously these line trends. On graph number 4, it's like a U shape. This is not a line, so we would say this is not linear. So option D, which says which data set shows a non-linear, I'm going to go with figure 4. Okay. Part A asks me which shows a negative linear relationship. So negative linear going down, figure 2. Which data shows a positive relationship? Figure 1. Now, the reason I didn't pick that figure 3 for either of those is because I've got these dots, but there doesn't really appear to be a pattern. There's no relationship. So figure 3 would fit for that. So let's go ahead and talk about one last thing. We're going to call them clusters and outliers. So if I look at these, notice that on figure 1, I've got some clusters, and on figure 3, I have some clusters. So instead of a pattern being like, well, the trend is going up or the trend is going down, I'm noticing that they're being grouped together. So that's what we call clustering. So when it says what 2 data sets are showing clustering, I would choose option 1 and option 3. Now option 2 and number 4, they're not close together, they're spread out equally. Hey, one's trend is going up and which one's going down. Now out of those 2 figures, which one has an outlier outside of the normal trend? 2 continues to do that same pattern, but 4 has these 2 random dots. So we would say figure 4 has an outlier. And that is our intro to scatter plots and correlations. If you have any questions, please reach out and have a great day.